What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to a Bringing the Juice podcast live stream. There we go. What's up, your guys, Cody and Adam, joining me here from all the way from Arizona. Adam, thanks for being on here, man, with me. Yeah, man. Obviously, we know about Chris Ballard went with the media just a little bit ago. Fortunately, was not able to live stream it when he officially went there, but want to do that now. And so we're going to kind of do this, kind of talk about it, have some discussion. It's going to be a good time. I've watched a little bit. I know you have as well, Adam, about this Chris Ballard thing. So we can just, hear him out, hear what he has to say about a few things, pause, get some comments, all those things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Appreciate you all being here. All right. So I know you're gonna have a lot of questions. Let me just get back started. And thank y'all. Look, I failed. I'm not gonna sit up here and make excuses. Failed a lot of people. Highly disappointed, about where we're at, how the season went. I never take lightly what's at stake here. And it's not, the wins and losses, but, people's lives are on the line. Players' families, coaches' families, front office, people in this building. And I don't ever take that lightly. And, I'm disappointed. Disappointed where we're at. And ultimately, it falls on my shoulders. I won't walk away from that. I won't run from it. Saying that, we'll grow from it, and I'll grow from it, and I'll get better because of it. Unfortunately, our greatest moments of growth and greatest times of growth happen in the darkness. And you just got to keep your eyes open and see the light.
I'll say this, Adam. Chris Ballard, if he's not in football eventually, he's going to be one heck of a politician.
Right.
How to speak.
Yeah, it's you have to weed through like what he actually believes versus what he read out of a book and recited, right?
Right. I mean, he's so good at it. I'll give him to his credit. Like, he had us all convinced this football team was just right there, So what were your thoughts, though? I did appreciate just his candidness and just being upfront. His first thing was, I failed, And I was like, absolutely you did, because look at where we're at right now. We have no quarterback. We have really no direction right now with this team and no head coach and all this stuff. What were just your thoughts to Ballard's kind of opening statement here and kind of his thoughts overall?
I thought finally, right, we've seen things like the Jeff Saturday hiring and him almost, and I think he'll appreciate this because as we'll hear as the press conference goes on here, he talks about how stubborn and straightforward he is and deserves all the criticism. So hopefully he hears this and takes it honestly. But I was like, okay, so he's like saying the right thing, I guess. But before, we've seen him as kind of a petulant child a little bit with the Jeff Saturday thing, just the way he kind of reacted and then got mad and then didn't say much. So, I mean, the opening, I think, is good.
Yeah, saying the things he needs to say. I'm interested to see just the rest, how this goes. This is almost 40 minutes, guys, so we're going to be here for a while. It is being able to be streamed on Facebook, I think some other places, Colts app and things like that. And we're watching it on Facebook right now, so let's continue.
I had some rough moments, this season, thinking about, where we're at and how we got where we're at, the mistakes I had made, and there's only one way you got to go through it. You can't avoid it, can't go over it, can't go on. I mean, you got to go through it. It's the only way you're going to grow. And I believe in our people. I believe in our processes. We have really smart, good people in this building. And I believe going forward, we'll prove that. I know there's doubt. There should be. Absolutely, there should be. The criticism, it's warranted. Criticism, regarding my job and what I've done, it's warranted. But I've not lost any confidence in what we can build here. We live in a world where failure is not allowed. It's not allowed. you fail in this world, we're doing it at the biggest stage. When you fail in this world, you get canceled, and everybody wants your head, and rightfully so in some cases. But if you're able to go through it and grow from it, you can reach your greatest heights, and I think we will. All the things written and said, and say most of it's warranted, we didn't perform well enough, and it falls on me.
It's interesting, Adam, because you talked about how Ballard in his last couple pressers has been very defensive, right, about himself. And, I don't know what it's been. Maybe he's just had some time to process it. Maybe he's had some good conversations with Jim Irsay. But this is a kind of a different Chris Ballard than we've seen the last couple press conferences that he's had, right? It's so funny because, like, he was so defensive about, the wide receivers the one time. And now he's kind of just like, yeah, I failed. I failed in a lot of ways. He's not making excuses, which I think is a positive sign. We'll see if that continues. But, I'm definitely glad that he's it's just kind of ironic how it's kind of just changed so quickly, from where he was a few months ago with the Saturday stuff and to now, like just his mood and just the way that he's phrasing things. You can see by his body language, like just all that stuff is very telling.
Yeah, it feels a little bit closer to like when he's hired. I think the one thing that I picked up, again, my other job is in sales, so I think I hang a little more on words. But the one thing I guess I struggle with here is it's my fault, but we have the people in the building and I trust these people. So I think that's a little bit what I'm struggling with here. I'm not expecting him to throw anybody under the bus. But that's the piece. It's like, okay, so if you've got the people in there and you trust them, yet you failed, then help me understand what's going to change moving forward if you've got the people in there and you trust them.
Sure.
That's kind of my concern, I guess.
Yeah, and is that him saying, without saying it, like, it's the coaching staff, like, we've handled the issue, Like, is that what he's saying? Like, is he saying, you know what? Like, we're learning from a personnel standpoint. We think we have the right people in the building. We're just going to get a entire new coaching staff. I don't know. But, like, that would be the only explanation for me as to why he would say that. So, anyway, let's continue.
All right. Fire away.
Chris, you put this team together. In your own words, it was a failure. How did it get this bad? You talked about the mistakes. What were those mistakes?
Well, look, looking back, on it, when you're changing quarterbacks every year, it's tough. It's tough on everybody. It's tough on, the team. And, not getting that position settled, has a little something to do with it. And that's no indictment on any of the quarterbacks we have. Let me talk about Matt Ryan. It's not an indictment on Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is as professional a player that I've ever been around. And I still think he's got, something left to in his body to play. Smart,
Disagree.
knows how to play the game. Looking back early in the season, we had some changes to the offensive line, and that's where our struggles occurred early. And, we just never really recovered from them. And it took us some while to get some continuity. I probably underestimated that. I thought we've been so good up front, for the last few years. I thought with, the three really good players we had coming back in Braden, Ryan Kelly, and Quentin, that we would absorb those other positions and they would come up to speed right away. And it just didn't occur that way.
I don't like that excuse at all. Like, that's a real cop-out answer. That's weak. Like, how the world, in your right mind, do you think, having a third-round rookie and having Matt Pryor, who has never played the position at left tackle, is the solution? And, it's just because we have Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith, it's going to be fine. But we're neglecting to properly address. And on the end, it's probably going to work out because Ryman's looked pretty good. But, like, at the end of the day, you failed to address that. And it really, especially early, Adam, came back to bite you in the butt. And I just hate, like, the kind of the answer that he gave. It's just like, that doesn't answer, like, why, why you thought that was okay. It doesn't make it okay. So, which I'll say he is owning up to it, saying I thought that was the thing, that was my process, and it was wrong. So I'm glad about that. And at the end of the day, it's hopefully going to work out, and Ryman's going to be the guy for the next 5 to 10 years. So at the end of the day, I don't like that answer at all. I don't really think, I think it's kind of a weak excuse, but anyway.
Can we also address the comment about Matt Ryan?
Yeah. I mean, is that a lot of just like, because Ballard never really threw anybody under the bus, right? Like you said, but like Matt Ryan's done. Let's be honest. Like, he's done. His arm shot, he came and pushed the ball beyond 20 yards. Like,
right.
It's bad. Like,
and can we stop being an organization of feel and be an organization of fact?
Right.
Because I think that's what's got us into this a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's my concern, I guess, if he does stay in power, because let's not forget that him being at this press conference doesn't mean he's keeping his job.
Right. Yep, exactly. I mean, we'll see, but yeah, how much of that is just him having to save face? And I mean, Matt Ryan, let's be honest, he was a really good quarterback for a long time. So it's like, you have that respect, but hopefully you don't allow that to, maybe hinder your judgment, if you will. So, but yeah, also it would do the Colts a favor if Matt Ryan did retire. It'd save him some money. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, definitely. Let's continue.
That's a mistake. Now, I will say mid-season, I did think the line played better. I thought they played better down the stretch. I know
they did. Yeah.
They've taken a lot of criticism, but down the stretch, that wasn't the reason we were losing. The one thing it's a fickle game, and I know people say it all the time, but like, more games are lost than won. We lost them. Like, you cannot be minus 13 in the turnover ratio and win. You can't do it. You can't be 32nd in the league in the red zone and win. And I think on defense, we either finished 30th or 31st in the red zone. Like, those are key areas of the game that you have to perform to be able to win. There's a way to win every game. I've said this every year with whoever you have. I mean, the talent level in this league between teams, sure, there's going to be a few that have low, but it's not, it's not here and here. It's usually here and here. And I think you even look at the playoffs of teams that rebounded from a year ago that everybody said stunk, and now they're in the playoffs. But those teams that got in, they didn't lose the game. Like, they didn't lose the game, and we lost the game. You can't turn the ball over. You have to execute in the red zone when you get those opportunities, and we didn't.
That's true. I mean, the Colts definitely did. How many times do we say the Colts snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory? They did that so many times this year. It was almost predictable and comical at the end of the year how predictable it was with this team. But I mean, it's just bizarre to me still, Adam, how different this year's Colts were than last year's, just in terms of the turnover department. The Colts were one of the best in turnover ratios last year, and they're by far the worst this year.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how a year can change so many things. I know, obviously, with the quarterback situation, with Shaq being out most of the year, like, those things are key. But like, it's just bizarre how you go from one of the best to literally the worst in like just one season.
Isn't it interesting too? It feels like he's transitioning from taking the blame to now blaming the players on the field that execute.
Mm-hmm.
It's another piece that I felt through this press conference. I think I got through most of it, but it's another piece that I felt is it's like, I take all the blame, but we can't, and we can't, and we can't, and all the we can'ts are on the field.
Right.
It feels like more of a Jeff Saturday conversation than a
Right.
Chris Ballard in this scenario.
Right. But he's
maybe
right. He's
right.
absolutely right. And that's why I go back to the coaching thing. Like, how much of that does Ballard and Irsay, as they've talked, been like, it's been the coach? Like, and I think to a degree it has been the coach, because like, it's not like Ballard has not brought in talent. I will say he definitely in certain key positions needs to be better about it, but he has. I mean, outside of quarterback, we already know, we've talked about it to death. Like, how many draft picks have the Colts invested in the Frank Reich era in pass rush? And literally, what do they have to show for it? How many times have the Colts tried to do these different things and it just hasn't worked out, So I don't know. I guess I have the question of like, how much of that is Ballard putting on the coach, and how much of the coach should be blamed for that, as well. I would think after going through 2 coaches and having, kind of some of the same issues, you would say maybe it's a personnel issue as well. And you need to own up to that, which he has in some ways. But yeah, I always just go back to the coach with the kind of some of the subtle comments, the subtle jabs at the previous coach, Frank Reich, and some of his staff as well. So just, it's interesting. Absolutely interesting. So do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, let's keep it rolling.
All right.
We know that is true, but good teams, they don't do that.
That's right.
Your team consistently never
That's
did
right.
that and did to commit those turnovers. What does that say about your team, and what do you think the talent level of this team is right now? Have you had to reevaluate that?
Well, I mean, look, we're starting that process. I mean, obviously we're not good enough. I mean, you finish 4-12-1. I'm not going to sit up here and act like, oh, you know what? We had a Super Bowl roster and it's everybody. No, we're not. At the end of the day, we're not good enough. And we got to figure out the areas we're not good enough. Do I think we're just complete? Our talent is not like when I walked in here in 17, I thought we had some talent issues that we had to correct. I do think there's some building pieces here. They got to play better. Our best players got to play to their standard, but I don't think we're void of talent. We need to add more talent, and there's areas that we need to get better at, but I don't think we're complete void of talent.
Yeah, that's something that I actually talked with Derek about. We made a video that'll actually be coming out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that, guys. Like I said, this doesn't feel like the 2017 Colts, like in terms of talent. Like, yes, they had in similar ways, they blew games and they lost games and it was ridiculous. But like this team has superior talent to that 2017 team out, Adam. And I don't really think it's close. Like I really think this team from a talent standpoint, they have a lot of good young players and some nice veteran pieces that I think have played well. But yeah, guys like Michael Pittman, he can't have all those drops. Jonathan Taylor can't be fumbling the ball, in critical situations. Ryan Kelly and Quentin, all the offensive line, they can't perform the way that they did last year. Like things like that, where you're just like, yeah, you have some pieces, but they weren't playing up to their standards. The majority of them weren't. And that's a big reason why the team sits right now where they are. But the talent is certainly there. But there's definitely some holes that this team needs to address 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have negative 13 turnover ratio.
Yeah.
And be competitive, right? I mean, unless you're the Minnesota Vikings who had a negative point differential and somehow win 13 games or 12 games or whatever, right?
Right.
But I mean, I think, I guess what I keep waiting to hear is how you're going to be different. How are you going to do it different? Because if you're not going to do it different, then why in the world are we keeping you around?
Right. Exactly. He says, I've learned, but like, how have you learned? What have you learned? What are you going to change? Yeah.
Right. And if you're so transparent, let's talk about it, Chris. Say
exactly.
what you learned.
Exactly. All right.
Of input, control, varied since you got here. Have you called the same level of shots since you got here? Because it seems like you're not.
I know where you're getting at. I'm going to say this about Mr. Irsay. I love working for him. He's a good man. He's a good owner. And he has a lot of experience in this league. And we talk about everything. And look, we don't always agree. Like if we're agreeing all the time, I'm not doing my job. If I'm sitting here just, and I think y'all have been around me long enough to know that like it just comes out. Like sometimes even when I don't want it to, it just comes out. Like I'm going to be honest and tell you what I think. And I'm very honest with him about what I think. And he's very honest and direct with me. And at the end of the day, there's some decisions that I'll make and you say, good, okay, Chris, I don't completely agree with that, but let's move forward. And there's some decisions that he'll make that I'll say, look, I don't completely agree with that, but we'll move forward. But when we make one, we make it and we make it together and we move forward. Mr. Irsay lets me do my job.
What are your thoughts on that?
Lets me do my job. I'm just going to throw and it may get hashtag worthy. Are we the Cowboys of the Midwest now?
Right. I was going to say like, it's interesting how he's like, I let that show sometimes. Well, yeah, like the press conference where you literally just like crossed your arms and looked like, you're at a timeout, like that kind of stuff. Like he's got to be better about that. Like he has to. It's, Like, you're a professional GM. Like, you can't act like a baby in the press conference. Like, you just need to be better about that kind of stuff. So,
Or does Irsay need to turn over power? Do the girls need to get more power? Whole different discussion. I mean, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
From all that you said, and you know how the league is, it's a win. It's a win league. It's a bottom line league. Yeah. Are you surprised you're sitting here?
I don't ever worry about that, chap. Like, I come to work. I give you everything I got. I mean, everything I got. Like, I don't shortchange anything. And I don't worry about getting let go and fired. I do the best I can. And even the best laid plans sometimes, even the best thought out plans don't work sometimes. And they don't. And it didn't work last year. And so I'm not going to sit up here and make excuses for that. And I'm not going to make excuses for having a job. I've got to do my job better.
How do you evaluate Jeff Saturday, 8 games in, and is he a candidate for this job?
He is going to be a candidate. Okay. Tough. And I told Mr. Irsay this. I mean, when he made the decision and we talked through Jeff, I voiced my concerns. Which were, look, this is unprecedented. And we're putting him into a really tough situation here, taking a team over mid-season. It's going to be tough. And I wanted to make sure he understood that. And I had the same talk with Jeff. But look, here's what I know about Jeff being around him. He is smart. He is a good teammate. And he is a leader. Like, those things are real. And now we need to find out, because we didn't get into, like, you can't change. Like, you can't do wholesale changes like when you come in week 8. You know, that stuff starts in April. You know, your vision and everything you want to do, that starts in April, and that's built over time and over years. And so it'll be interesting to hear. He'll go through the process just like everybody else. Be interesting to hear his vision, how he wants to build it. I mean, he'll go through the whole interview process.
Well, I would hope so. You know, like any interim coach, I think would at least get the opportunity. But what I take from this, Adam, is there ain't no way Jeff Saturday's in the top 10 for Chris Ballard's, selections. If he has the choice, right? If he has the choice, which is a big if at this point, with how irrational and just kind of crazy Irsay's been recently with his power. But like, if Ballard gets the final word on it, you know what I mean? Like, if Jim says, all right, whoever you want, like, I'll sign off on it if I see and we have a conversation about it. Like, I don't think Jeff's in that conversation, completely honest with you, just because you look at the record. I know he was put into a not ideal situation 100%. It's a no-win situation, but the Colts routinely embarrass themselves, Adam. Every single week they found a new way to embarrass themselves. And I would argue they were the worst team in the NFL at the end of the year. Like,
yeah. It was interesting. Close your eyes, remove the name. He's smart. He's a good teammate, and he's a good leader. Are we talking about a player or are we talking about a coach?
That's what I thought was as well. I'm like, a teammate. Like, what? I think there's a way that, and I think this is probably how, if Ballard has the opportunity, he'll be like, Jeff, we appreciate what you've done. We're going to go a different direction. We obviously appreciate what you've done for this franchise as a player and also as the interim coach, but we're going to go, in a different direction. Like, I see that easily being a conversation where Saturday's like, I completely get it. I understand. And then move forward, And so I really don't see a scenario where Saturday comes back if Ballard is the one calling the shots at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he comes back as head coach. I could see him maybe position coach. I could see some of the culture he would like to build. I love the aggression. And, those of you who haven't seen it, go check out his end of year presser. I mean, he does have a plan, and he did inherit, in fairness, a catastrophe. And he then lost arguably the best running back in the NFL. And had a quarterback who was fumbling and turning the ball over every game, it felt like 3 to 4 times. So there are some pieces he can't control. There are a lot of things I love about his personality. I hope for his sake that he's not the head coach of this team next year.
Right.
Because it's not fair to him.
There's so many qualified candidates out there. I mean, the Colts have already requested to speak to some of those guys that I think a lot of us would like. Shane Steichen, Eagles offensive coordinator, and also as well Ben Johnson, the Lions OC. Like those two guys would be some of my top candidates. And so there's a lot of qualified guys out there that have the experience that you're looking for, especially if you are going all in, which it seems like they will be, on a rookie quarterback, right? You need somebody that you could pair with him that can get the most out of him, right? And so I don't think Jeff Saturday is that guy. While he's a great motivator, players love him. Like, that hasn't changed since he was a player or a coach. But at the end of the day, I think if you're really wanting to set your franchise up well and your rookie quarterback up well from the beginning, you got to get that guy in there. Whether it's a defensive guy that gets a good offensive coordinator, or whether it's an offensive guy that can work with that quarterback, you just need that, and that's so critical here in year one for this rookie. So, all right,
D'Amico Ryan's on that list, by the way. I want to see the name in the next couple days.
Yes, please. I would be all for that. All right.
Colts, no division titles in 6 years. Do you feel like the roster construction, the roster blueprint, how you wanted to build it is the right way in today's NFL?
That's good. That's good, Kev. I mean, I got to grow. Like, I'm very stubborn and dogmatic sometimes.
Heck yeah, you are.
I do believe you have to be great up front. Like, I'll never, like, that's in my, that'll be on my grave. Like, you got to be good up front. And we weren't good enough this year. We showed signs, and I do think there's potential going forward, but at the end of the day, we weren't good enough, and that's on me. But in terms of how we build the rest of the roster, that's an area that we'll examine hard, and move forward and grow.
You said when you guys had the hearing press conference to introduce Jeff that you felt like this team, everyone was going to throw in the towel and you guys can still make a run. Jeff's comments yesterday sort of said that he didn't think that you guys had a chance to do anything this year. Do you agree with what he said there?
I don't ever go into like at that time we were 3-5-1. So you're talking to, I mean, I've been a part of teams that been 1-5 and made the playoffs. Been a time last year we were 1-4 and we're 9-6. So I ain't, like, I'm not throwing in the towel mid-season. And then we go and we beat the Raiders in his first game. So you think, okay, we got a shot here to maybe rebound this thing, and then it just got spinning out of control. So I don't ever, my mindset is never in going into a game where, like, we don't have a shot. I don't have, even at any point, my mind doesn't work that way.
Will Jim Harbaugh be a candidate for this job, and who will make the final decision up to the next coaches?
Good question. I won't get into who the candidates are. I know there's names out there, but we're not going to talk about that. I'll lead the search. Look, ultimately, Mr. Irsay makes the final call. And I don't care what there's 32 teams, 32 owners. They own the team, and we give them, here's our thoughts. And Mr. Irsay is a good listener. And ultimately he'll make the final call, but he will lean heavily on our work and what we do to get the coaching candidates in place.
Do you think some of his?
I hope he does. For everybody's sake, I really hope that he allows Ballard and this crew, and it appears that Ballard's going to lead this coaching search. So hopefully, he just allows Ballard to do, and all the people around that, to do what they're hired to do and not step in. Obviously, he needs to have some sort of say, but, like, it can't be the thing where, the Colts have an idea, Ballard and company, they're like, for example, we're going to hire D'Amico Ryans. And he's like, no, I don't know about that one. And he's like, have you thought about, whoever? Like, he can't do that kind of stuff. Like, he can't overstep his GM. Like, that's just not good for anybody. And so, yeah, I don't know your thoughts on this, Adam, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're 6 days shy of a team that hasn't won a game in 2 months. And let's not sugarcoat it. The decision that was made at that point almost 2 months ago was to bring Jeff Saturday in. And Jim Irsay intentionally put his face all over that decision. That is a Jim Irsay thing. There are no questions when Jim Irsay makes a decision because he will pimp it, for lack of a better term. And he did that about the Saturday thing. And whether it's Saturday's fault, the team construction fault, at the end of the day, you've got to put the right people in the right positions to make the right decision. And no matter how much information or how much knowledge you have because you've been in the league so long, sometimes, just like in business, it's okay to listen to outside people. My concern is Ballard's made this claim before with Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels was his guy and Frank Reich wasn't, right? And so that was supposedly the whole reason that we're going down this road. So, I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, we need a change here. And I don't know with Chris Ballard here that there isn't enough back and forth that's gone on over the last 5 or 6 years that either one of those men, I mean, Ballard said it himself, he's wildly stubborn. I would hope that Irsay would admit to that. But I don't know that either one of these men can put that aside when they sit down in a room and knock feeling out of it and go straight to fact. That's my concern.
Yeah. Well, I will be interested if Ballard indeed does do the search and he's the guy this year. Like, I want to see him get his first candidate, his first choice. Like, I want to see that, because I do feel like for what the Colts were designed to do, what Ballard's core beliefs are, it just kind of seemed a little bit different than what Frank Reich was. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of like Ballard believes in kind of what Mike Vrabel does, with the Titans, like, beat you up, like that kind of mentality. Like, we're just going to outwork you, not beat you. And it just kind of felt like there was maybe a little bit of a disconnect there. So I'm interested to see, is a guy like DeMeco Ryans one of those guys that is a Ballard guy, what he's looking for in a coach, a motivator, a type of guy. And maybe, I know he obviously would have chosen Josh McDaniels, which probably wouldn't have gone well, but I'm just interested to see him finally get his number one guy to be the coach from day one. So be interesting, but let's continue here. We still got some time.
Decisions over the last 12 months have hurt this franchise.
No, Mr. Irsay does. We've had some long talks. Had a long talk Sunday. No, I don't. He's been in this a long time, and he's got a good feel for this. And every decision that has been made, we have talked through. And I don't think it hurt us. No, ultimately it falls on my shoulders.
Chris, a very specific approach to quarterback the last few years, right? The veterans, we understand why.
Yeah.
In retrospect, looking back, hindsight, all that, do you feel like there were any missed opportunities to address that position more permanently?
We post-mortem everything. Yeah. And I've examined and I've looked at that. You got a good team. All right. We thought we had a good football team. And, when you're making, and this is hindsight's 20/20, it's easy to look back and criticize what you've done in the past. And I think me, like nobody's harder. Like y'all write stuff, but it's not like I've fired myself 50 times this year. So it's, I sit in that press box and just agonize. And it's looking back, we kept thinking, okay, we'll add a vet quarterback. Would give us a chance to really get over the hump, and looking at missed opportunities. We thought with Carson, we were getting a young enough player that we could have a guy that could be here for the long term for at least a 5, 6, 7 year run, and we weren't right on that decision. And then giving up the assets at the time probably cost us from being able to get one in 21, which I don't really, looking back, I don't really know if we'd have had an opportunity in the draft, but and then not having a first round pick this last year restricted that. So I've thought a lot about that, and what direction we would go. Look, at the end of the day, we made the decisions we did. We had a process to make them, and we're at where we're at. So,
with regard to the head coaching search,
real fast, that's such a bad answer in some ways. Like,
AKA deal with it.
Like, okay, like Ballard acts like he had no choice in getting Carson, like you did. Now, again, yeah, I get it. You gave up your first round pick, couldn't get a quarterback, but you could have got Justin Fields if you really wanted to. Like, there's no question about that. You've had opportunities, and I'm sure he knows that, but that just sucks. Looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, like you said, but man, some potential awesome opportunities there to get your guy.
And a perfect opportunity to say, again, I haven't done the best job. Leave it at that. Don't pontificate. This is your prime spot to show us that your actions and your words are heartfelt and they are going to be different. Just flat out say, look, like I was too stubborn to go away from my approach, and my approach based on our record has been wrong. It's simple.
How important will be the ability to put a structure around a young quarterback? How important will that be in your process?
I think the ability to win. All right, so we know there's the elite of the elite. We know that, like, when you walk out on game day, when you got one of the elite of the elite, the field, I mean, all of a sudden it just feels different. But you got to be able to win with average to above average quarterback play. You got to be able to find a way to win. So it's going to be very important. Whether it's an offensive coach, defensive coach, special team coach, the ability to build a plan around how we're going to win, what our identity is going to be, and how we're going to win with who's playing quarterback is important. Because I think there is a way to win every game. I think you just look across the league right now, and teams with, that might not be getting they're not getting superstar quarterback play, but getting solid quarterback play are finding ways to win.
You're going to be surprised as we are if you don't pick a quarterback in the first round. We're going to be surprised. You know that. Are you going to be surprised if you don't?
Boy, you got the loaded questions. You've got them fired up today. No, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's the fourth pick of the draft. We aren't. I mean, excuse my language, but we earned that. I don't like earning it, but we did.
That's genuine Ballard right there.
I've said this before, and I think history proves me right. I can take one. We can take one as an organization, and y'all are going to celebrate it and say, we have got the savior for the Colts. And then if he doesn't play well, why'd you take that guy? You got to be right. We got to be right. We understand the magnitude of where we're at in the draft, and we understand the importance of the position.
I don't know. Do you
to get one that actually you can win with, and to be right is the most important thing. Not if we take one or not, but being right.
But he trusts himself and his staff that hasn't made the right decision.
Then you got Frank. What matters right now, criteria-wise, for the next head coach?
So I'm gonna tell you what I learned. One, don't start with an end in mind. Okay, it's big. A lot of times what happens is you get a vision of what you want before you've made your mind up, and then you might ignore somebody that's really freaking good right in front of your face. So we've got a very detailed process put together on the traits and attributes we're looking for in the head coach. Don't care which side of the ball.
Okay, good to know.
And then to be patient, take your time, and make sure we have a thorough interview with everybody. Consistent, thorough. I don't care if it takes till mid-February to hire the head coach. It's about getting it right.
Point differential has been a thing that you've always kind of alluded to, is how your team played in a season, worst in the league. What does that say about personnel-wise?
Well, it says we weren't very good. I mean, I think we were minus 138. Fourth quarter, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like what happened in Dallas, where, it's 21-19 going in the fourth quarter, and we just, they score the touchdown, then we have the fumble, and then it was just a complete meltdown. Look, we got to get better. I'm not going to sit up here and make excuses. We got to get better. I got to do a better job. I got to get more talent on this football team, got to improve it. Our best players have to play to their capability, and the young players have to play to their capability that we thought. I don't think the cupboard is dry. I do think we have some good young players, and I think we got some players in their prime that can play better. But at the end of the day, we're 4-12-1. Not good enough.
The effort was there all year long.
What's
I feel
that?
the effort was the same all year long.
Yeah, that we got a good group. Like they work. I didn't ever feel like, they weren't competing. Our competitive confidence, it's somewhere along the way, and I don't know where, but our competitive confidence, we lost. Like when it got hard in the game, those are the times we would melt down.
Yeah, I mean, this team will soft at him. I think Ballard sees it. We all see it.
And can we talk about why the QB is so important at this point? But Matt Ryan, in all accounts from everybody and their brother that you talk to, is an unbelievable man. But we've had a lot of really unbelievable human beings on this team. And maybe what we're seeing here and what Ballard's alluding to is for the next quarterback search, they want a leader to come into that locker room. Because when you're in a competitive spot, I mean, say what you want about the antics of an Aaron Rodgers and a Tom Brady and folks like that. But what happens when their team gets in a spot? You see them doing what? They're talking to everybody, offense, defense, rallying them. They're on the sidelines. And maybe that's what this organization has missed. I mean, Wentz isn't rah-rah. Phillip Rivers is a gosh darn it guy, which is pretty funny, but I don't know that he's an overly
a little bit more fiery.
Yeah. But I mean, he's kind of the last pseudo fire we've had, right?
I say, like, look at the team. Look how they responded in 2020 versus how they've responded or lack thereof response when it mattered. With Carson Wentz at quarterback last year, they crapped the bed last 2 weeks. This year, every single week it seemed like they like we talked about, they lost games, and Ballard even said it. They lost games, they didn't win games. There's only one game this year, Adam, that I can genuinely say the Colts won that game, and that was the Jacksonville game, the second time. That's it. Other than that, no, none of them. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that he's taking accountability here, for sure. And but maybe there's just some things that it can be up for interpretation sometimes what he means by certain things.
Yeah.
So some people, can take it one way. Some people can take it the other way. But he's saying the right things. We'll see if he walks the walk or not.
February 16th is an interesting date, by the way.
Why is that?
That would be the date that you'd be allowed to interview D'Amico Ryans if you made it to the Super Bowl, or Shane Steichen if they made it to the Super Bowl.
That's true.
Or around about that. I don't have the date sitting in front of me, but if he was going to do a lengthy conversation, it would need to be after the Super Bowl, which I believe is that first week in February, which then puts you right around that same time frame you just spit out.
Yep. All right, we still got some time here, so let's continue this. We got about 18 minutes left.
For whatever reason, I don't like, I'd sit here and I wish I could have a complete answer for you, but I don't. That's something we have to work through as we go through this off season. But Ali, man, it's ultimately it's where we're at. Doesn't mean that's where we're going to stay, but it's where we're at right now. And look, you got to look at it. Like, I'm not sitting up here with rose-colored glasses I'm not going to put our heads in the sand and act like everything's okay. It's not. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, we don't need to make. No, there's going to be changes, and there's going to be, changes on the roster. When you're at this level, there's going to be change. Everybody knows that. Players know it. I know it.
I'm interested to see who that is.
It has to be the right guy. If there's a quarterback in this draft that you think is that guy, would you move heaven and earth to get him? Would you go up to number one?
Yes, I do whatever it takes. If we thought there's a player that we're driven to get that makes the franchise and the team better, that's what we would do.
I love that answer. I'll say that.
Oh yeah,
I think the fans have
that's what we need.
A depiction of you where you're conservative. Like,
Yeah.
You do trade back a lot, and I can understand why. Whether it's draft, free agency, trades, whatever, do you feel like there's a need to maybe go for it a little more like we have been seeing around the league? Whatever shape that takes.
I think it always, like, I don't know. I mean, we did trade for Buckner. We did trade for Carson. Didn't mean we were right on the trade, but we did trade for Matt Ryan. It's not like we haven't done anything. Like we've just sat on our heels and we're just going to draft every player. And no, we've made.
You haven't drafted a rookie quarterback in the first
now,
round.
They weren't always free agent moves, but
that's what you haven't done.
I would say Buckner was a good trade, unequivocally.
Yeah.
It was, but it
53
wasn't.
to force Buckner's.
Because you could have got a
Him
quarterback.
and Grover Stewart have you?
Yeah, I love the Buck trade,
my
though.
Lord.
I'm with him
These
on that
two
one.
guys just showed up each and every week and competed their asses off. Never bitched, never complained. You would never know what the record is watching practice and watching games, watching these two dudes play. They played the way the game's supposed to be played. We have other guys that did that too. But when our times to be aggressive, we'll be aggressive when we need to be.
Over the last 12 months, there's been a lot. Has your desire to be here wavered at all, and why or why not?
Huh.
Wow.
No.
That's telling right there.
Like we don't have a transfer portal. We don't have that. And I don't want it. Like I've never backed out of anything in my life. I won't back out of this.
He was thinking about it.
Right.
Wow.
People are scared to struggle. I'm not gonna sit here and say I like it, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of the struggle. I'm not afraid of the hardness of what we do. Matter of fact, I kind of get off on it. And
Wow.
to answer your question, no other place I want to be but Indy.
I think he
I want to make it
contemplated
right for Indy.
I think he contemplated it, man.
Team around an offensive line, a lot of draft picks and money.
Well, we know he did,
We've
right?
talked in the past about that, how that sends a message.
That was telling.
What your team's going to be. Just curious, what did you think about that moment in New York? Kayvon Thibodeau doing Snow Angels, and some
We'll
other
leave
guys
that
were
one,
upset
Chris.
that
Don't say
offensive
anything.
lineman didn't
I'm
step up
interested
in
to
that
see
moment.
this.
How did you interpret that?
Because he cares about the offensive line so much. So let's see this.
I do believe and I'll never lose this. Your offensive line's demeanor, attitude, aggressiveness is contagious to the rest of the team.
100%.
At the end of the day, even though I thought they played better, they're not playing to the standard that they have set. As for that play, look, I think it's hard. I expect our players, and I think our players do. I think them to defend for each other. You protect your own, you protect your team.
What does this team
Go
go
ahead.
in the direction of the team? And talk of possibly drafting a quarterback. Have you talked to Matt Ryan about his future? And do you expect him to be back here next season?
Yeah, we'll work through that. I had a good talk with Matt yesterday. We'll work through that. Right now, it's about the head coach. Our staff's evaluating our roster. We'll work through that. But right now, the priority of the organization is to get the right head football coach.
And it should be.
Look
You
at
can deal with that
teams
later.
Like Kansas City, Buffalo, big trades to go up and get their respective QBs. What do you think? Obviously, you haven't drafted the top 10 necessarily on a routine basis, but what has held you back from making that sort of move for the franchise?
Yeah. So, at one point we had Andrew Luck. Okay. All right. So then, you go to 19, and then we'll go to the 19 season, get done with that one, and we decide to go with Phillip Rivers at the time. That was an area that when we had the 13th pick and we ended up trading for Buckner, that we did have serious talk about it at the time. But at that point we said, we got a bird in the hand here. We're getting a 3 technique that's a really special player and fits our character profile, what we want. And then in 21, we signed Carson, so the opportunity to do it probably was in 20, and we made the decision with Buckner, and I don't regret that decision.
Bruce, 2 things. One, from what you see with the offensive line, is Bernhard, do you think he is the guy or can be the guy or what?
Yeah, that's good. Yes, I do. Encouraged by him, very encouraged. Early was rough, as it is for most left tackles. I mean, we want them to be Jonathan Ogden the second they walk in the league, or Costanzo the second. I mean, we forget Anthony had his struggles early. Most left tackles do have their struggles early.
Is this his fourth year?
But to his credit,
Playing football in
I'll
general?
never forget leaving New England.
I think it's only like 2 or 3.
You know, Bernard is passionate and cares and wants to do the right thing. He's got tears in his eyes walking to the bus. And I remember telling him, I said, look, I said, you're going to have days like this in this league. And I said, but your mental toughness and ability to reset is important. And I said, and for you to make it, you have to do that. And to the kid's credit, he battled his ass off. He got better each week. I'm sure he's got some things he's got to work on. He's got to get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger, but we thought he performed at a winning level the last 7-8 weeks of the season. I know there was a couple plays and some mistakes out there. They all do. I mean, look across the league. I mean, players make mistakes. They're not perfect.
Yeah, talking to JT yesterday, surgery possibility, or do you know?
I think over the next 2 weeks we'll know more. It was a pretty good high ankle sprain, and you know, we'll find out more here in the next couple of weeks. I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no, but it looks positive.
Positive that you won't need surgery.
Yeah. So, but we'll work through that.
The interim front, when you hired Jeff on the interim front, did you think you guys should have promoted someone on staff?
It never really got to that point. You know, the discussion was Jeff, and when we decided to go that way, that's where we were going.
You know, as big of a roller coaster it's been for you guys, what about the fans here in Indianapolis to have to go through what they've gone through this year?
No, it
It
sucks, and I love them. They're great. I don't like even when they're pissed and they boo and the criticism and like that means they care. It means they're invested. They care. Like I would rather have that than apathetic people that didn't care. Like I handle that well. I'm still going to show up, and I'm still going to show up in public. And when they make a comment to me, that's okay. I handle it well. I get emails, calls. You have no idea. And I do everything I can to return all of them. And they deserve that.
Good deal, Cody. Let's see if we can get his number, text him, and get him on the show.
There we go.
I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for their passion. I'd rather them be passionate than apathetic. And I want to do good for them. And I'm sorry I let them down.
The perception from the outside is that Jeff has a leg up or 2 legs up on the rest of the coaching field search. What's your answer to that?
It'll be like his leg up is that he knows the internal workings, and he's been able to see the inside of what he wants to fix. But we'll have a process that'll be equal for everybody.
Rudy Rule.
Is it the right move to pay running back top dollar?
When they're great players, it is. Yeah, when they're a special playmaker, it is. I'm not going to get into what we're going to do contract-wise with him, but when you're a special player and a special playmaker, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Dovetailing off of that, Michael Pittman's also up.
Yep.
How hard was it this year to see his development or lack thereof when you've not got a vertical passing game?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Pitt's a good guy. Pitt's a good player. I don't know. I mean, we've all had this talk before. Like, what's a one? You know, is there? You know, what's a real one? I mean, you know, a guy that, you know, that every time he touches the ball, you're scared to death. You know that he's going to go score. So there are very few of those. Is he a really good freaking player? Damn right he is. And he's passionate and he's tough and he competes his ass off and he wears it. And I love that about him. I love that he wears his emotions on his sleeve. I love that he cares deeply about winning. Pittman's a really good football player. And we're lucky to have him on our team.
Was he frustrated this year near the end, maybe? Or?
I think everybody was frustrated. I'd be disappointed if people weren't frustrated. I'd be disappointed if our players weren't frustrated. I mean, I had them streaming through my office yesterday, and damn right they're frustrated. They care, but players need. I mean, like they want to win and they want to do things right, and unfortunately, it didn't go that way this year, so they're frustrated.
With Jeff, how much will the record? You mentioned the historical nature to the end of the season. How much will that matter in his evaluation?
No, I mean, I can't. Yeah, we put him in that's a tough spot, man. I'm not judging him by that. What I will judge, the things I did like were I stayed positive. He kept working, held the team accountable, wasn't afraid to hold players accountable. And when he saw mistakes, to call them out. Sure, he's got things he's got to grow. We all do. But I'm not gonna judge him off that.
To play devil's advocate, though, Frank was fired for his results with mostly the same problems.
Much different though, because he'd been here. Like he came in mid-season. Like you're not making major from the outside. It's hard to make major changes in a system when you're coming in week 9, almost impossible. I mean, it'd be no different if we hired an intern, a coach from internally. It's just, your habits and it starts in April. I mean, in April when OTA start, like your habits start, like all that matters. And, when you're, it's not impossible, but it is hard to fix habits in November. And at that point, we didn't have good habits.
Things were so broken. The system was so broken and the habits were so bad. Like how? Like why?
If I had something we're digging through to figure out, that's something we're digging through. No, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. And
Everything's being blamed on when he got here. But how did it get to that point?
well, ultimately our plan from a roster standpoint wasn't good enough. Okay. That's one. And then I think all the change, and sometimes, like, here's what we didn't do a very good job of. We didn't manage expectations very well at all. Like anytime you go, no, but that's like, we've been so process oriented. Okay. And that's who I am. That's who Frank was. That's who we want to be. We want to be process oriented. And with a good process, you're going to lead to a good result. Well, every time we keep going and getting these vet court, and this falls on me. This is on me. You'll get a vet court. Well, here's the expectation. We're going to Super Bowl. They got a good roster. They're going to Super Bowl. Well, there was holes in that. And, our job's to fix those holes.
Do you think that because there was so much change at one time, basically with a span of like 3 to 4 weeks, do you think that if some of that change had been dialed back, the results would have been different and people may have stayed locked in a little bit more?
That's speculative. I don't know. I can't, it's hindsight and speculative. I don't know if I could answer that one fairly.
But do you feel like, was that a fair position to put players in, changing the quarterback and the head coach and the offense coordinator in 3 weeks?
They're pros. It's their jobs. Show up and perform.
Chris, any early thoughts?
AKA no.
Oh, God. Kevin. No, zero. I have none. None right now.
Try to get an answer out of it.
Have you, so much has been laid at Frank's feet that this is his fault. Fair enough. If you talk to him, and I assume you have, because you're out.
And we're still close. I mean, we text too all the time. Frank's a good man. Frank's a good football coach. He's a great teammate. And I think, like myself, look, I do think Frank will get a chance to be a head coach in this league again. And I think he'll do a great job. And I think he'll learn and grow, as we all do through hard times.
Maybe just time.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes when it just got rolling in the wrong direction here, it gets hard. And sometimes it's just time.
Open to a college, you open to college candidates in the process?
Yeah.
Experience matter?
No.
You know, like, it's a bad situation, interim takes over, he doesn't have much of a chance. What about situations where the interim was more successful, like Wilkes in Carolina or Rich last year, Raiders?
They're better teams. They're better football teams.
Wow, really? He's going to say the Panthers are better than the Colts.
You know, Jeff Saturday's put in a tough spot.
Dang.
What can you point to say that he improved during those 8 weeks?
Yeah, that's good. You know, sometimes you don't behind the scene, you know, you can do things right and you don't see any from the outside world. You don't look and see, well, you don't see those improvements, but just his daily interaction with the team, learning how to really like being a head coach is hard. From not only managing a football team and coaching a football team, managing a coaching staff, 69 players, schedule, media, like all the stuff you got to deal with. And just each week, I thought he got better, you know, and I know the results didn't show that, but I did think he improved. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right. So that was Chris Ballard's press conference after the season. Adam, do you have any takeaways that we had that we didn't talk about? I know we kind of talked about some within this, but anything that stood out to you?
No, I mean, I think, you know, and we've talked about kind of doing this going forward, Cody, when we start talking about drafts. So I'll stay off the draft here, just for the means of this is about Ballard's conference, right? I'll be very interested to see the way they approach it, and not what they tell me, but what the actions we see.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a lot of good things said. When Chris Ballard was hired, I was jacked, man. I'm not going to lie. When he took Quentin Nelson, I was jacked. When we got Shaquille Leonard, I was jacked. You know, those are decisions that Chris Ballard made if we're to follow what he said in that press conference.
Yeah.
So if he somehow found an epiphany like we all do from time to time, right? You go and you do your job 4 or 5 years and you kind of, I don't want to say get in a rut, but you get in a spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to kind of snap out of it. I feel like we saw more of the Chris Ballard that came in day one today. Again, watch his eyes. When you watch his eyes, you can tell where he's like, I've got something I really want to say, but I'm going to go search for what I need to say. I'm hopeful. I think they now get they have to take a quarterback, but let's not overlook a couple of the guys that need to be re-signed. Paris Campbell had a healthy year and was second on the team in receptions. That boy needs to be signed now, right? You need to give the coach pieces that he doesn't have to think about, because if it does take till February 16th and you've got less than a month to make all your decisions on your current roster and start to figure out what the free agency period looks like, which I know we'll be talking about on your podcast here, but like, that's unfair. You talk about putting Saturday in an unfair position. You need to make some decisions. If you think that you've got some really good core pieces, and I would think a guy who is second on your team in receptions is that guy, make that decision. EJ Speed, I think, is that decision. Bobby Okereke, in fairness, I think is that decision. I keep seeing like Colts don't have enough to pay him and all. No, go to Matt Ryan, say, Matt, it's time. We're in a space you're not going to enjoy. We're going through a process. Can you ride off into the sunset and give the team a break here?
Right.
That's what I'm thinking through, as you can see my eyes bounce around as I'm talking right now. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just interested to see, like, talk is cheap. You know, the actions are going to speak for themselves. And I'm just interested to see, like, Ballard said a lot of good things, right? He said a lot of things that make me hopeful and optimistic that things will change. But, like, at the end of the day, I need to see those things before I can truly believe that he's the guy long-term to lead this franchise and make them, you know, go back to contenders. Again, it all starts with the quarterback, but other decisions as well, right? Where you spend your money, things like that. And there's also going to be, as you talked about, some guys you got to bring back. There's going to be some guys you need to let go. And Ballard talked about that. There's going to be some roster changes. I mean, the guys that obviously come to mind, you think of, Kenny Moore, those kind of guys that are a little bit older, on a couple of years left on their deals. Like, you got to move some of these guys. So I'm just intrigued to see what that looks like, and because some of these guys are guys that Ballard has brought in via free agency, via the draft. Ryan Kelly, I guess, is one of the exceptions, but like, what does he do with some of his own guys? Is he willing to admit, like, hey, I like these guys. I'm glad we brought them in, but, for the best of this team, it's in our best interest to mutually, move forward in different directions. I'm
do we
interested to
change
see all
scheme
that.
again? Do we change scheme again? Because that vastly changes the coach, right? I
Right.
mean,
I don't think they will. I think Ballard's a staunch believer in 4-3. So I think that'll stay the same. I mean, they've drafted for that, so I don't really see that changing. But offensively, I'm interested to see what changes there and all that stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. Ballard said some good things, but a lot that needs to be done, obviously, this offseason to make the Colts back into potential playoff contention. Because a year removed from being right there, Adam, right at the doorstep of the playoffs. So. A lot can change in an offseason, and we'll see exactly what that means for Indianapolis moving forward. But thank you guys for everybody who was tuning in here. Over 500 people. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff on your way out. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. It was always a good time having you on, just getting your thoughts overall. And lots to do this offseason for the Colts, and we'll see what those moves are here in the next coming months.
all right, good playoff weekend, guys. Watch some good football.
Yep. Take care, guys. Thanks, and go Colts.
See ya.